Hello and welcome everybody tuning in today. I'm joined by Vic Brown, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of IBM US Public and Federal Market. Vic, thanks so much for joining us in conjunction with the ThinkGov 2021 Summit. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation and discussion.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. And I want to jump right into a conversation on transformation in the public sector and start with a question on how you think the rate of transformation in the public sector has accelerated in the past year and what you think might have drove that.
I've seen an extreme acceleration of the rate of transformation in the public sector and the federal markets for that matter in the past year. And what really drove it was COVID. There was a drastic change in the way people had to work, the way people had to operate, and the way people had to execute in the last year. And that change caused transformation that was necessary to actually execute from beginning to end. So it became a necessity to transform instead of just a wish to transform. And once it became a necessity, the acceleration of it just continued, and it's continuing to this day. Also, some of the cyber events that have occurred also affect that rate of transformation. But I think the main driver was COVID and the fact that people had to work remotely where in the past they worked in office spaces. And it changed the way that people had to think about what is coming to work today and what do I have to do to get my job done today a little bit differently than they did 2 years ago.
You know, Vic, one of the things we hear a lot about, and you kind of mentioned COVID being an accelerant, that open hybrid architectures are becoming a big part of this. So I'd be curious to hear how you've seen this sort of hybrid workflow and model become more effective for public sector missions during this time.
Yes, I've seen people change the way they think about their cloud environment. One of the things I always talk to customers about is that their cloud environment is actually part of their enterprise architecture. And you have to think about it that way. And because of the acceleration and transformation, people are thinking about the fact that they need to be able to access the information that they need wherever it resides, when they need it, at the time they need it, with the flexibility to execute it from multiple places. Hybrid cloud provides that capability. You're no longer in a box. You have the actual environment and capability to execute your mission, regardless of where the actual result set sits, where the data sits, and where the execution has to take place. So if it's on-prem, hybrid cloud fixes that piece of it too. If it's on cloud, it can fix that. If it's multi-cloud, it can orchestrate across that in a secure fashion that allows people to actually get the job done.
So you mentioned the cloud piece, and now that a lot of public sector agencies have sort of made it to the cloud and are sort of getting their feet wet there, the next topic is emerging technology. So I'd be curious to hear what emerging technology you think has the greatest potential to revolutionize service and mission delivery in that public sector space.
I think the hybrid orchestration technologies, as well as the AI orchestrated technologies and automation, has a very, very, very big potential to revolutionize the service and the mission delivery in the long run. And the reason for that is that the technology to do this is becoming part of hybrid cloud. It's no longer just on an individual cloud or on the large clouds. That means you can have it behind your firewall, right one time, and execute across multiple environments without having to even change your code to do that. And when you start thinking about how that changes the way you think from end to end about the service and mission delivery, it really is a concept that changes the game. You're no longer worried about having to do something in one way and hoping that you don't get stuck or locked in there. You can do it in one way and still have the portability and flexibility of moving that information and those workloads and that data around. And it just changes the way you think about the problem set.
So Vic, as we close out here with the final question, I'd be curious to kind of follow up on that with a question about data and how can public sector organizations more effectively use data to drive a cognitive enterprise that delivers faster intelligence, accelerates workflows, and empowers people to focus more on higher value work.
Well, data is actually what everything flows around right now. If you look at what's going on and actually throughout all the markets, you'll see that data is actually the flow of wealth and technology and understanding and agility. So all of that changes the way that you think about how data needs to be processed, how it needs to be executed, how it can be more effectively used in a cognitive fashion to automate things that used to not be automatable. So when you start looking at this from a cognitive perspective and you look at it from an intelligence perspective, right now everything's moving so fast that the speed of intelligence makes the difference between you being successful and not being successful. So the data is actually the key to make that happen. These faster workflows you can enable them in hybrid cloud. You can orchestrate them amongst clouds. You can orchestrate AI to actually help you do the organization and management of the workloads that move across the environments, and you can move the actual services to the data instead of moving the data to the services, which is a whole different way of thinking about accelerating that data to empower people to do focus and work on high value work and do some types of automation as well to ensure workflows that allow people to work in these environments that we discussed earlier that are no longer just in a single office anymore. They're across the world. And just like we're having this interview right now, you're going to see more and more of that continue long after COVID is gone, because this is a new way of working, a new way of orchestrating, and a new way of ensuring mission agility.
Well, Vic, we covered a lot in this conversation, and I think it's been a great one. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I thank you as well. I appreciate it and look forward to the next one.
Absolutely.